Hi, and welcome to another episode of Joy Recovery Radio. We're in part two of a three-part series on intimacy. So, part one, we talked about intimacy when it revolves around God, self, and others. And that one, we started with that because it ties into today's episode, which is checking in.
Yeah.
So, if I'm not attuned to myself, it's going to be really hard for me to reveal myself to you in a daily check-in. So, intimacy starts with God and self so that we can be intimate with others. And then we'll wrap up the three-part series next time talking about Imago Dialogue.
Yeah.
But today we're going to talk about check-ins.
So I know we talked a little bit about this earlier, but I was listening to a podcast and it said the number one reason why couples end is due to resentment.
Hmm.
And I know like a time ago, it used to be financial reasons or communication, money. But now that they're finding that resentment is a big deal, and I think that it is. Like personally, I think resentment is the culprit.
And infidelity was another big reason as well.
Huge.
And I'm sure all those other reasons are still very significant reasons for separation or divorce. But resentment, wow.
If you think about it, resentment ties into financial woes. It can tie into infidelity. Resentment can absolutely tie into communication. So I think, FANOS is a great tool to have safety around being vulnerable and providing the check-in. It's not as easy as it sounds, but I think it's really important as long as it's used correctly and not weaponized. It should never be like a show up and a dump, or like I'm going to use FANOS as a way to just make it all about me, put my partner down, say everything that's wrong with them, and then exit the conversation.
Yeah, that's not emotional intimacy. And we should probably explain what FANOS is.
Yeah, we should. We don't actually use FANOS.
We tweaked it, and really what we want to emphasize today is, yeah, we want to talk about the elements, but also the mindset.
Right.
But first, let's begin with what is FONOS? Where did this come from? What are we talking about with FANOS? So I understand that the very first time it was mentioned, it was in the book Shattered Vows. Deborah Lasser is the one who came up with this tool, and it's feelings, appreciation, needs, ownership. S can be struggles, sobriety, or successes.
And A can also be affirmation.
Affirmation, appreciation. Yes. And then we added an A at the end.
We did.
For action.
I'm so glad that we did. I would recommend that everyone add an A. There should always be something, when you're doing an exercise, there should be something at the end of it that is focus on making yourself a better version of yourself, or a compromise, a coupleship.
Yeah. Interesting tidbit. I did not know this, and I've studied Greek, but I didn't make the connection. But FANOS is actually a Greek word, which gives it a double meaning. Not only is it an acronym, but in the Greek, FANOS means enlightenment or to shed light on it. And that's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
It's taking something that's happening inside of me, my feelings, my needs, what I need to own, my struggles internally, and I'm bringing it into the light. That's emotional intimacy. It's into me see.
Right.
I'm shining a spotlight out of my relationship with God and self. I'm bringing that to you and saying, this is me, which is incredibly risky, very difficult for men especially, but for women as well.
I knew it was a Greek word. I already knew all that.
Well, I was familiar with the Greek word, but I didn't make the connection until I read that. Like, oh my gosh.
No, I had no idea it was a Greek word. Good to know.
Yeah, good to know.
So we've talked about what FANOS is, what FANOS is not. Now we're going to discuss, when do you do FANOS? How often do you do FANOS? Where do you do FANOS? I think that that varies for a lot of people. So we're just going to share what has worked for us. I don't know that there's, one great way to do it. I would think that it really needs to be implemented based on how your relationship works. So for us, we typically do it around dinner time, not too late because we're mentally exhausted, typically after 8 o'clock. So we try to do it before 8 o'clock. Where do we do it? Typically in our bedroom. If, the boys are around, kids are around, dogs are around, in our room, we could shut the door. We can have that healthy, intimate, vulnerable dialogue. And then how often? FANOS for us is typically done for us every day. Some days, we might forget or the day just kind of gets away. And by the end of the day, we're just too exhausted. But we're really good about committing to doing a check-in every single day. And I think that that has created a lot of vulnerability between us and a bond. And now it doesn't take as long as it did in the beginning.
And it shouldn't.
Yeah.
As a general rule, it shouldn't take that long. And, what I often encourage the men that I work with, because I'll often issue this as a challenge as part of their homework, is to initiate check-ins and customize it for the coupleship. Are you a morning person, evening person, what works best for you? Just go ahead and define those parameters with your partner, but you initiate it. You need to be the one initiating it. She shouldn't be having to track you down and say, hey, you haven't done a check-in in 3 days. And so the consistency is key. I usually have them start off at least 3 times a week, but ideally daily. But the temptation for the men, because initially, this is how I looked at check-ins, if I'm just being honest here. Another tool, another task, another check the box. All right, there's 6 elements here. Let me jot them down right quick and make sure, I can say, did my work, where's my cookie? That kind of mentality of just, it's a task, let's check the box, let's get it done. When actually, if you do it right, it is an invitation to emotional intimacy. It is the opposite of acting in. And we men, typically, when it comes to our behavior, we're either acting out or we're acting in. Acting out, we already know what that is. Acting in is avoiding intimacy. Check-ins, that's an invitation to intimacy if we do it right. The limiting factor for men on check-ins is how attuned are they to themselves.
Mm-hmm.
For example, feelings. Most men, they don't know what they're feeling. They couldn't tell you what they're feeling.
Well, women feel like that too. Like
Yeah.
there have been times where maybe it's just been a difficult day and I'm just so exhausted or maybe even so flooded that I'm not sure what I'm feeling or I'm feeling a lot of different things.
I mean, used to, I thought I had 2 emotions, anger and those are my 2 emotions. But we actually do have a couple of tools that we'd like to recommend, especially for the men to be able to label what are the emotions that I'm having today. One, I think you have here.
I did. I pulled this out of our nightstand. This is the feeling wheel, and it's really,
For those of you who are listening, you can't see what she's holding up, but
we'll share.
yeah, emotions wheel or a feeling wheel, you can find it online. Yeah.
There's, I think, like 56 different feelings that someone can choose from on here. This is in our nightstand. The Imago Dialogue is in our nightstand, and so is the bucket list.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Another tool that I
this is a
recommend
great resource.
for a lot of my guys, I can't remember if it's Cambridge University or the University of Stanford, but one of them came up with something called a mood meter, where they break it down into 4 quadrants: pleasant or unpleasant emotions, high or low energy. And so you pick the quadrant first. Am I feeling low energy or high energy today? Do I feel pleasant or unpleasant? And once you narrow it down to that quadrant, they've got this whole list of emotions in that quadrant to choose from. For a guy, that makes it really easy because we know if we're feeling low or high energy, pleasant or unpleasant today. They actually have an app that you can use. I think it's called How We Feel, where it'll break it down for you. You can check in multiple times a day with the app and select your emotions, and bam, when it's ready to do FANOSA, the very first thing you're going to share is feelings, and you've got it there on your app. I felt this and this and this today.
So when we're doing FANOS and we're going down, so F is feelings, A is affirmation or appreciation, and it's needs. O is ownership. We just talked about the S. And then we've added an A, which is action. When we're doing that, one person goes. So Roy typically goes first, and then I'll go. What we don't do is we don't exchange dialogue. Now, for some couples, they do that. And, if that works, do whatever works for you. But for us, when he states his feelings or ownership or something like that, we just choose to roll it over 24 hours and then discuss it the following day. That's been really helpful for us, especially when it's getting late at night. We've had check-ins that have gone till like 3 o'clock in the morning. And those were typically times where maybe I was flooded or triggered or just not in a good headspace. So for us, if he's going to bring up struggles or something, we parking lot it and we'll discuss it the next day. Another thing that we do is the check-in is really a space to be vulnerable and, communication and connect with your feelings. If I am just not in a good headspace, I might forfeit and just say, I'm not going to do a check-in today. That doesn't give him the hall pass to not do a check-in. So there have been many times, especially when we've had a rupture, that he would check in with me. There have been times where I've asked him, hey, when we're doing FANOS, can you just eliminate needs? Like, I am a fixer by nature. And if I hear a need, then I want to fix it. And so I've asked him, just parking lot the needs and just do FAOSA. So that's also been helpful. Another thing that you can do is sometimes being vulnerable might be difficult. It doesn't necessarily have to be done face to face. For us, that's the best practice. But some couples actually do it via text, especially if they don't have privacy. So, we've had that when the kids are over, it's after dinner, we really need to do a check-in. It's going to be late, and it will just be a quick text message of, here's my check-in. This is my headspace. This is where I'm at today. And that's also been helpful. So there's a lot of ways that you can customize FANOS, FANOSA, meet your relationship needs.
The principle that you're describing is she has veto power over all of it. She may decide, I do not want to receive your check-ins. I don't want to receive any of it. As men, we need to go ahead and do it. I recommend that you go ahead and do it and you write it down, even if she doesn't want to receive it, even if you don't end up sending it to her. We need it. We need the practice of emotional intimacy, of looking down inside of ourselves and identifying these things and getting attuned to ourselves and sharing it. If she doesn't want to receive it, go ahead and do it. Share it with a trusted brother. But we need to exercise this atrophied or dormant muscle that we've never used before. One of our daughters, she had a problem with her leg where she was limping, and we went to go see a specialist. And we found out that particular muscle was not firing. And one leg was a little bit shorter than the other, and the muscle was smaller than the other. And so it took a lot of specialist and physical therapy and a lot of intentionality. And she went on to become a dancer and a personal trainer, and her leg is fine, but it took a lot of work and focus and effort in order to stimulate and use that muscle. That's kind of what check-ins are for us men, is we're not used to intimacy. We're used to
Compartmentalizing.
We're used to not being in touch. We're used to numbing ourselves, medicating ourselves,
Yeah.
acting out, or maybe it was communicated to us as men that we don't have needs.
Yeah.
And the fact is, our acting out was an effort at meeting legitimate emotional needs in illegitimate ways. And so it's not fair or accurate to say, I'm a man, I don't have emotional needs. There's 17 core emotional needs. We'll put it in the show notes, but these are true for men and women. It's part of being human. And you do have these needs, but often we're not aware of those. She may not want to hear about your needs, and she has that veto power, but definitely ask about her needs. She may or may not want to share that with you. That's a very vulnerable thing.
There's one thing I want to say about needs, though.
Mm.
So there's a difference between needs and wants.
Good point.
So an example is a check-in for Roy, let's say. He's done the F, he's done the A, and then we're on needs. And his need is intimacy or physical touch. Is that a need or is that a want?
It's a want.
It's a want.
It's a want.
It's a want. It's a request. So I would make that distinction. A need is not necessarily something that your partner can give you. So we need to just make a clear line on distinguishing a need from a want. And are you putting a burden on your partner by requesting something? Maybe she's not ready for physical touch or intimacy, but you keep listing that as a need. That's going to be a problem. It's going to create some tension and eventually probably void check-ins altogether.
And that can be a way to weaponize it. And what you can share when it comes to needs that show up for us, we want to go in the order of God, self, others. That's the order that I recommend. Some of our needs only God can meet for us. A lot of our needs we can meet ourselves. There is such a thing as encouraging yourself, changing your self-talk, validating yourself, things like that. So go to God first, then self, then others. And that doesn't have to be your partner. And during certain seasons, it should not be your partner. And you go to a healthy brother for that. But during the check-in, you can say, I had one of the 3 eyes of shame show up for me. I felt incompetent today. And I realized what I really needed was to be validated. And I called Joe, my brother, and just told him about what I'm experiencing today. And he really validated me and it met my need. And that's just demonstrating to her that you're growing in self-awareness, in meeting your needs in legitimate ways and not numbing yourself or acting out or acting in, but you're reaching out and practicing intimacy. And you're being vulnerable and you're exercising that muscle. And she needs to see that consistently, even if she's not the one meeting that need.
Right. You know, with FANOS or FANOSA, one thing I wish that when the acronym was created, that the S went before the N. And the reason why is when we identify a struggle, then we can identify the need
Persona.
persona to eliminate the struggle.
Yeah.
So that's just something that popped in my head as you were talking.
It's a completely different Greek word. It's actually a cuss word, but
Sure.
I'm joking.
We'll add it to the list. But I think that's a really relevant point is when you're thinking of your needs, what are you struggling with? Because again, needs is different than a want because when you're thinking about your struggle, you can correct it or apply action to it with a need. So an example, I'm sleep deprived. I'm struggling to concentrate and to focus. My need, I need to go to bed early. I need to get some sleep. I need to get good rest.
Yeah. Or I need to take a nap.
I need to take a nap.
Yeah.
And that would be, I'm identifying the struggle. And now I'm satisfying it with a need, with an action item.
Yeah. What I often encourage the men that I work with to do when they're trying to really connect with themselves and practice self-attunement or self-intimacy is to do BEST. That's an acronym for body, emotion, spirit, and thoughts. Those are the 4 dimensions of our personhood and who we are. So what am I experiencing in my body today? Maybe I need a nap. What emotions have I had today? How is my spirit today? Is there some kind of tension because I did some kind of violation today and I'm feeling guilty about it and I need to confess that? Thoughts, what ruminations did I have today? Any resentment that I had today? So you could use BEST to become the best version of yourself, to get in touch with yourself, and to prepare beforehand, before you do check-ins, to take that personal inventory.
So earlier you asked me
Benefits.
benefits.
Yeah. For the women or for coupleship, what are the potential benefits of checking in?
So a potential benefit, and I've said this and I've heard a lot of betrayed partners say the same thing, is I don't know who you are.
Mm,
I don't know who you are. And that's because there's been this secret life that you've been living. And now you don't have the vice of acting out anymore. And so I am seeing behaviors that I may have never seen before. Behaviors of agitation or stonewalling that may have never been exhibited during our relationship.
right.
So for me, Fanosa is a way of creating that vulnerability and me being able to see who you are, what thoughts do you have, what needs, what fears do you have, what motivates you, appreciation. That's such a small, big part of acknowledgement for a betrayed partner. Like, what do you appreciate about me from a characteristic standpoint on a daily basis? That, for me, really fuels me. Okay, he's recognizing these things about my character. So it's kind of like I'm getting to know you for who you really are. So
Yeah.
I think for me, that's definitely a benefit.
And for the guy, it's the same benefit, getting to know himself, because he doesn't know himself. So what an opportunity to reveal to you who I am, but it's limited by how well do I know myself? Am I checking in with Roy before I check in with Jacqueline? And that's the limiting factor. There is the potential for emotional intimacy. There's the potential for self-attunement. There's the potential if we're willing to take the risk. And this is scary. This is really scary. And most men won't admit it, but they are afraid of intimacy. They're afraid of being bound. That if I show you who I really am, I'm risking rejection by you. I'm risking judgment by you. That's why psychological safety is paramount with check-ins. That's why we recommend the 24-hour rule, that you don't try to fix, you don't react, you don't give feedback, you don't do anything till the next day, no matter what was shared.
Mm-hmm.
That because you violate psychological safety. And what's going to happen is if I am really transparent and vulnerable and I share something with you that was so difficult and you end up judging it or reacting or try to fix it, or I feel invalidated in some way, you know what happens tomorrow? I really don't want to do check-ins. I want to go back to acting in intimacy avoidance.
Yeah.
And the last thing I want to do is a check-in because I got stung when I did it. We wanted to let you know about our latest upcoming webinar on April 19th. We will be taking a deep dive into what Bill W. from AA called the, quote, final frontier of recovery, and that is emotional sobriety. Are you in recovery and ready to move beyond stage 1, sexual sobriety, and embrace stage 2 recovery, which is emotional sobriety or emotional well-being? Then this webinar is for you. Or are you a betrayed partner who wants to develop emotional resilience and regulation techniques in the midst of your grieving and trauma? Then this webinar is for you. At the time of this recording, we do have a few spots still available. So go to joy-recovery.com and click on webinars to secure your reservation today.
Another benefit is, I talk a lot about resentments, but it is debunking the false narrative that I think some of the betrayers create. And it allows me to assess, how am I saying something where he is misinterpreting what I'm saying? So if I say something like, I really need self-care, I need to take time to do self-care, you could hear, I need time away from you. I don't want to be around you. And then it goes into the R's, the 3 R's. So we're feeling rejected, we're feeling resentment, and then we are going to ruminate on the rejection and the resentment that we're feeling.
Mhm. Another potential benefit is it can be trust building,
Yeah, for sure.
but it can also destroy trust. And the reason I say that is because if you make this grandiose commitment, I'm going to check in with you every day, and then 3 days go by
Hmm.
and I don't check in, I've actually reduced the amount of trust.
Yeah, credibility is gone.
Yeah. Yeah. But it does have the potential with consistency and with vulnerability. It has
Mhm.
the potential to build trust. Now, how long is it going to take?
As long as it takes.
As long as it takes. But I can tell you this for the men, it will take longer than you think it should to build trust, but it will not take as long as you deserve, because you really don't deserve to be trusted again after what you've done. Any trust she has in you is a gracious gift. It's going to take longer than you think it should, but it won't take as long as you deserve because of the trust that was violated.
That's a good way to think about it. What I think is, you're going to get whatever you put in. If you're going to just check the box, then that's all it's going to be. That's it.
Yeah.
You're not going to get the results and the resolution and the coupleship building that other couples
Yeah.
might get from this.
If you want to get the most mileage out of it, be consistent. Be as consistent as you are in acting out,
Or
and as consistent as you've been acting in, because there's usually a converse relationship between the two. What typically happens, I don't know if there's ever been an exception to this with all the couples that we work with, and even in our own relationship. When the acting out stops, the acting in begins. The acting in is intimacy avoidance, and all 47 IAD behaviors are basically acting in.
Yeah.
It's keeping you at a stiff arm. It's, I'm not going to allow you to hurt me. I'm not going to be vulnerable with you. The problem with that stiff arm is it also doesn't allow you to help me. And it doesn't allow me to heal you, because I'm not leaning in, I'm not getting close to you. So your mileage will vary with this, but if you want to get the most mileage, be consistent, but also take the risk. Take the risk, be vulnerable. Share that last 20% that you never thought you would share, that you're really embarrassed about, and you feel like you're going to be judged and you're going to be rejected. Go there. Practice that psychological safety. Don't talk about it till the next day. And if it's a really big issue to talk about, we recommend Imago Dialogue, which we'll discuss in the next episode.
I also think that FANOS is a way to bridge the coupleship, especially around the S. So when we're talking about struggles based on your vulnerability, your struggles could actually be something that maybe we examine and we look at to minimize, reduce things that you could be struggling with. So in our struggles, we will often mention, I had to bounce my eyes 3 times today or 4 times today. That's what we do in check-ins. Other people, they might not want to hear that. That's fine. That's something that I've requested. And that's been a really healthy exchange for us. And I really appreciate the honesty when you commit to providing that level and that depth of your struggles.
And we hear that a lot from betrayed partners, is a turning point for them where they feel like, I think I will give this relationship a try, or that was one step in rebuilding trust with me, or that was very healing for me, is when he becomes vulnerable,
Hmm. Oh, absolutely.
when he shares what he normally would not share, when he takes the risk of being transparent. This was quite a while back, but I remember I went to the UPS store. I think I was getting something shipped to someone. I can't remember. But there was a woman there, and she was the only one in the store. There were the employees, and they needed someone to notarize, be a witness for a notary. And so she asked me, would you be willing to sign this for me? And it was so early in recovery, and I just had this agreement with you that I wasn't going to rescue other women, that I wasn't going to have interactions one-on-one with a woman. I just felt very uncomfortable. And I felt like a total a-hole, but I had to decline. Like, I'm sorry, I can't help you.
Oh my gosh.
That was years ago, but that's an example of just sharing that with you. That lets you know about a struggle I had that day and how I handled it. Like, there was a damsel in distress who needed my help, and that is not something I'm comfortable with because that was my MO in the past. And so I was the jerk to her to protect your heart and told her, I'm sorry, I can't help you.
And maybe the 24 hours is something that we could have had a healthy dialogue exchange around, is what prompted you to feel that way aside from just boundaries, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. So are we ready to get into the elements, or did you have anything else you want to talk about before we
No,
talk
I
about the
think we've
elements?
covered a good amount.
So we've already talked about feelings. The only thing I would add for the men, if one of the three eyes of shame showed up for you that day, I encourage you to process that, because shame is usually a really common emotion for us. Usually shows up in one way. The three eyes of shame, just for review, we've had it in another podcast, but insignificance, incompetence, or impotence, if those showed up for you in some way, how did you handle that? How did you process that? Because shame was the pre-existing factor to our acting out behavior. And it's still a large part of our experience. And so include that in the F on feelings. Anything else on feelings?
Yeah, feelings can often tie to fears. So you can also add fears. And I think that is being very vulnerable. It's debunking the man card, because men are supposed to be fearless. Well,
Right.
I know that there are fears. I
Absolutely.
know that you have fears.
Yeah.
So that could be something to also think about if you're struggling to identify, what am I feeling?
Mm-hmm. And when you do feelings, the correct way to do it is just to simply say, I feel blank. It's like one word. Or if you had 3 or 4 emotions today, and I feel blank, and I felt blank, and I felt blank today. What you don't want to do, because this is a way of weaponizing it, is I feel you blank. I felt like you blank, or I felt like you blank, and now you're making about them. This is no longer you checking in about your feelings. It's you venting on them and weaponizing it.
Right.
Yeah.
And don't make it about something that they've done. I feel, you know,
Rejected because we have an in-house separation. And
rejected.
yeah,
Yeah. Like
Yeah.
this is supposed to create vulnerability and safety and coupleship growth.
Yeah.
So, there's going to be negativity, but just be conscious
Yeah.
about it.
Appreciation or affirmation. This is something absolutely critical for the men to do, but with all 6 of these elements, she has veto power. She may not be in a good place to give you affirmation. She may feel like you're struggling with pride or entitlement or a big ego, and she doesn't want to stroke that, or she just doesn't feel safe, or she just doesn't want to do that part, and she has total freedom.
Wait, but she can also do an affirming example of herself.
Mm-hmm. But he needs to do it whether she opts out or not on that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So it could be, I want to affirm that I was able to get everything done on my to-do list. It doesn't necessarily have to be about him, but it can be about something about your schedule, your day. Affirm your growth if that's what you feel you need to do at that time. Ours have typically been affirming the other person.
And usually character qualities.
Oh, absolute character
Yeah.
qualities. And it
Yeah.
can be, I appreciate that you're a great mom.
Get specific.
Yeah, redundancy is going to be a problem. It's going to feel like a check the box, and it's going to cease any opportunity for vulnerability.
Yeah. Then we get to needs. She may not want to hear your needs, and that's okay. But you still need to identify them and share them if she wants to receive them. If she doesn't want to receive them, that's fine. But you still go to God, self, others in that order to get your needs met. But you can't get your needs met if you haven't identified them. And even if she doesn't want to hear or receive your needs, go ahead and ask her, do you have any needs today? Because you're in a posture of service. You want to serve her. You want to put her needs above your own, because we did not do that during our acting out. And so go ahead and ask her, is there anything I can do for you today? Do you have any needs today? And a lot of times betrayed partners, they don't know what they need, and that's okay. They don't have to come up with something for this.
Yeah.
They can opt out of this one, but go ahead and ask her, is there anything I can do for you? Any need I can meet for you today?
But when you're saying, when the betrayer is stating their needs, if you're having trouble identifying your need, think about your struggle, but also make sure that your need is not a want, and that your need isn't something you're putting on her to fix. She's got enough on her plate. So your need needs to be very intentional.
And I would probably stick with the 17 core emotional needs, and we'll put that in the show notes. But it's things like, I needed to feel validated today, or I needed to feel accepted today, or I needed to feel forgiven today, or I needed to feel encouraged. I needed hope today. And then talk about, what did you do to help meet that need? When it comes to God, self, and others, how did you address that need? And then O is ownership. And a couple of things I recommend on here, we touched on a little bit, but if there's been any struggle with resentment, we actually recommend that you share resentments or potential resentments or struggles with rumination, that you share it with your partner if she wants to hear it. We have found that to be actually a good antidote against resentment, is to go ahead and, I think we both have done this before. We'll say, I want to share something with you so that it doesn't become a resentment.
Oh yeah, I just did it last month.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's actually very preventative when it comes to resentment. Resentment is holding on to it. This is me letting it go.
Right.
This is me owning it. I'm not hiding it, and it's forming a grudge, and it's stuck inside of me, and I'm re-experiencing it and re-feeling it and ruminating on it and rethinking about it. But I'm releasing it, and I'm sharing it with you, and I'm embarrassed that I'm even struggling with this. But this is the raw me. This is the real me. I'm trying to make sure I don't go into resentment,
Right.
that I don't feel this or think about this a week from now. So resentment can be a part of ownership. Another thing could just be anything I did to wrong you in any way that I need to take ownership for, that I need to take responsibility for, even if it wasn't intentional. If I impacted you negatively in some way and I realize it and I didn't mean to, I still need to own it. I need to take responsibility for it, whether there was intent or not. If there was any acting out behavior whatsoever, if there was any lust, objectification that you need to own, if whatever your bottom line behaviors are, porn, masturbation, whatever, there was any acting out behavior whatsoever, or if there was any acting in behavior, I was defensive towards you, I slammed the door, I used anger to try and control you or shut you down, I stonewalled you, I avoided you today, you need to own that. That's part of ownership. So resentments, any wrongdoing towards you, whether it was intentional or not, any acting out of any kind, including lust and objectification, and any acting in.
Only if she wants to hear, though.
Right.
less in objectification and struggles and temptations. Some betrayed partners don't want to hear that. They don't want to know. Some of us do.
Yeah. And she has total veto power on that.
Absolutely.
So S can mean three different things. It can mean struggle, it can mean success, or it could just be sobriety. So any of those three apply to the S. Some things that I recommend the guys share during the S part is if there were any temptations today,
Mm-hmm.
you didn't act out, you didn't go into lust and objectification. Did you need to bounce your eyes today? Go ahead and share that as a success. That's part of S is in the past, I probably would have objectified this person. Today, I looked away and prayed for this person. I did not go into objectification. So that can be S. What did you do for recovery today? That could be part of your sobriety, part of your S. And then for her, if she feels comfortable, what she can share during S are any triggers that she had.
It could also be successes. Celebrate yourself. Celebrate your wins. I like to do that. I think that's really affirming for me is he calls me optimistic Oprah just because the glass is half full.
And you call me negative Nancy
I do, but I wasn't going to say that.
because the glass is definitely half empty.
Yes. But I always think,
And I say I'm realistic, Roy. But
right.
Anyway,
And I say it could be worse. So I'm going to focus on gratitude, successes, wins, the small little things that fuel me.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you can also do that.
sobriety, struggle, or success could be triggers she had, temptation he had, and what kind of recovery work did you do today?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep. And then A,
Action.
action. A is not in the original FANOS. It's something that we've added just in our coupleship. But action is so important to me. So if you're going to put something out there, then what is the remedy?
Yeah.
So I don't want the FANOS to be a dumping exercise. Like you dump your feelings on me, you dump your needs on me, you dump your struggles on me, you dump your ownership on me. Like it can't be a show up and throw up sort of exercise. There needs to be some sort of action. A is just, I'm taking these necessary steps to become a better version of myself. I'm taking these necessary steps to provide safety for you. I'm taking these necessary steps to sustain my sobriety. So action can be, I'm going to get cameras. I'm going to put a GPS. I'm getting rid of passwords. I am going to go to X amount of meetings every single month. I am going to call a brother at least once a day. I'm going just complete step 4 within the next 2 weeks or complete my disclosure.
So that's FANOSA. Should we do a simulation?
Yeah, let's do a quick one.
I do recommend that you do prep work beforehand when you're going to do a check-in and you do the best inventory. You look at the mood meter, you identify all 6 elements and you write them down. There's no problem with that. And then you're ready to do the check-in. The actual check-in shouldn't take that long. So I'll go first. I'll do the full FANOSA.
Okay.
And then I'll turn it over to you. Some of the feelings that I felt today, I felt a sense of contentment and peace. And I felt excited about recording this podcast with you today. One of the things I appreciate about you is your sense of humor. We do a lot of laughing. We do a lot of cutting up. We do a lot of flirting, a lot of back and forth. I appreciate that you don't take yourself or life so seriously, that you see the importance of laughter. One of the needs that I've recognized is that I have not lifted weights in like 5-6 months, and I miss it and I need it, and I'm feeling the effects of it. Ownership, I felt frustrated earlier today when you gave me feedback about my teaching style and that I tend to over-explain things. I do appreciate the feedback and I'm going to reflect on it, but I have to admit, if I'm being transparent, felt a little frustrated when you shared that. For S today, I just want you to know that I am sober today. There's been no lust no objectification, no porn, masturbation, emotional, physical affairs, no acting out behaviors whatsoever. The only time I had to bounce my eyes was one of the owners of the dogs that dropped off the dog. I could tell in the peripheral vision that she was wearing shorts. I did not look below her neck. I don't know if she was attractive or not. In the past, I probably would have checked her out to see if she was attractive, but I was very mindful to mainly focus on the dog. And she addressed me at one point, and I looked at her face and answered, and then shifted my attention back to the dog. And then an action I took today, I'm going to be going to the office 2 days this week. And so I want to be proactive. I want to be prepared. I want you to feel safe. One of the things I've done in the past when I had to go to the office was I started a Zoom call on my phone or on my laptop, and it records it to the cloud, and it records my entire day while I'm at the office. I don't normally have to go to the office. I work from home, but this is a rare occasion where I have to go 2 days this week when I can't really get out of it. I actually bought 2 body cams today on Amazon that I'm going to try. I'm going to test both of them tomorrow before I have to go to the office 2 days from now. I'm going to see which one works best, and I'm going to discreetly wear that, because what's been happening with Zoom is it'll kick me off, and then I'll reconnect, and it announces really loudly, recording now, to the entire world. And now they all know that they're being recorded. So that's the action I'm going to take this week, mainly as a proactive step to keep you safe.
Great.
Yep.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
So feelings for me, I'm feeling satisfied. Today I got a lot accomplished, which I'm so grateful for, because typically it's a manic Monday. I appreciate you getting the boys ready for school this morning and allowing me to sleep a little bit more, because I've been really sleepy lately. Needs, I need to do some self-care. It's kind of hard to do that with the boys, with the pets, and so I'm feeling a need for that for sure. Oh, ownership. I was reluctant to give you feedback about your teaching style, especially right before we filmed this podcast. I was like, maybe I should have waited until we did the podcast to provide some feedback. I want to say that you're very gifted, and this is a natural thing for you. It just comes naturally. It doesn't come naturally for me. So it was meant in a very sincere and loving way. Struggles have been my own self-criticism. So body image, self-image, that's why I'm saying self-care. I need to spend some time doing that. That's a struggle for me. I am committed to finishing my painting that I've started. I'd like to get that done within the next 2 days.
Wow.
I think I can do it. Action is to really make myself a priority. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing.
Absolutely. Guys, it's that easy. So we don't have to do it, because that was actually my...
And that was my real check-in.
Okay, good.
Yeah. And I should wait till tomorrow, but I'll go ahead and tell you now, I actually sent you a very long text about the body cams today, but it sounds like you didn't read it.
Yeah, no, it was with the Manic Monday.
Yeah.
I'll own that I didn't read it.
So the third installment of this series is going to be Imago Dialogue. So if something had been shared that was pretty heavy, and we need to talk about that tomorrow, we recommend the Imago Dialogue, which is a very structured way to have difficult conversations or emotionally charged conversations. Psychological safety is absolutely critical to the way you do check-ins and the way you do the Imago Dialogue. So we'll talk about that next time. And it's not this way for every couple, but if you can do it in a way where there is eye contact and you're face to face and you're facing each other and you're giving the nonverbal communication that I am present, I'm with you, you're important to me. You kind of lose that when you write it, when you text it and things like that. And some couples, that's just where they are. And you need to honor that. But if you can get to the point where it is as intimate as eye contact and shoulder to shoulder, face to face, that's where you want to get.
Yeah. And engage.
Yeah.
I think when you're doing it and you're struggling, like you're like, what am I feeling?
You're not ready. You didn't do the inner work to be ready to do the check-in.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
like if you came to me and it's like you didn't do like the prep work before and we're just sitting there and I'm just like, well, I can tell you what I'm feeling right now. I'm
Yeah.
feeling really frustrated because you didn't do any prep work.
It's a good sign
And
that,
we're sitting here and you're just doing us.
and it's a good sign that this is a check the box thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That you didn't even prepare for it.
It wasn't important. With that, we will say good night and choose joy.
Yep. See you next time. Thanks
See
for
ya.
joining us.